Greetings, this is Paul the Poke from paulthepoke.com. Today's topic, trend update, the Sanhedrin. So after 1,600 years of absence, the Sanhedrin of Israel is back in the news. They oversee legal matters and future construction of a pending third temple. This is the same Sanhedrin who illegally arrested, tried, and convicted Jesus in Luke 22 and Mark 14. They are also the same Sanhedrin that pressured Pilate for Jesus' death on the cross. So who is the Sanhedrin? It's a group of 71 members. The group, back in the day in Jesus' time, was made up of members from the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the Sanhedrin was led by the high priest in the past. In another sense, they're not the same Sanhedrin. They have a website. They did not have a website back in Jesus' time. And if you're interested, www.thesanhedrin.org. And the scripture reference for today's news is Exodus 12, verse 2. This month shall be the beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year to you. And so, essentially, these guys are going back to identifying the biblical or religious New Year, which begins at the moment of sunset in Jerusalem on the evening of the first potentially visible crescent moon. This is also known as Rosh Chodesh. It would be the beginning, day one of month one on the Jewish, Hebrew, religious, biblical calendar. The spring equinox is the demarcation point governing the solar cycle. So a biblical new year can begin before or after the spring equinox. So what's happened recently on March 10 of 2016, the Biblical Commandment of Exodus 12:2 was fulfilled for the first time in 2,000 years. So in the Cardo neighborhood of the old city of Jerusalem, two witnesses stood before the Sanhedrin and gave testimony that established the beginning of the new month. So in other words, they saw the sliver of the new moon and proclaimed it to the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin, of course, questioned them, and after some debate, did allow a video camera or a video picture from a camera of the sliver of the new moon to confirm that in fact it was a new moon. So the real interesting thing is, prior to the declaration of the new moon, a temple service was completed. Animal sacrifice was not included, but the priests were in full garments. A grain offering was burnt on the altar. Instruments and vessels were provided by the Temple Institute. And if you're interested in this article, www.breakingisraelnews.com, if you'd keyword in Sanhedrin, you could get information regarding this happening. And the main point of the event was to correct the Hebrew calendar. There are contradictions currently between Hillel II's calculations and calendar versus the astronomical reality of the sun, moon, and stars. The Sanhedrin is aware of the differences and is working to correct the issue. So before we give the Sanhedrin too much credit, I think it's important to understand that there have been people out in Israel who've been doing this process of identifying the sliver of the new moon for quite some time, and it's the way they did it for, frankly, thousands of years. This is how they kept time. This is how they were instructed to keep time per God. People have been identifying the new moon, or Rosh Chodesh, for some time. So here's the procedure that they've followed. Every month this takes place. Every month. So the sun disappears for 2 to 3 days. And at that point, toward the end of the lunar cycle, they are looking for Rosh Chodesh, which means head of the month. And they go outside of Jerusalem, and it's going to take place over a 2 or 3 day period. Once the moon goes dark, of that hour or day, no one knows. That should set off some bells to some people. And by definition, a new moon is proclaimed when the first little sliver emerges from a darkened moon. It's the tiniest crescent that's noted briefly at sunset in the western sky at that time of the month. The month begins at the sighting of the new moon. So the month doesn't begin once the moon goes dark. The month begins at the sighting of the first little sliver of the new moon. 2 witnesses have to confirm the sighting for legal purposes to be in accordance with Jewish law. And then upon agreement, the 2 witnesses report to the high priest. When the new moon is confirmed, the trumpet or a shofar or a ram's horn is blown to notify everybody else, hey, it's a new moon. So if you find these types of things interesting, you also may want to check out whenisthenewmoon.com. That's all one word, whenisthenewmoon.com. And the folks that run this website have people who are trained witnesses to identify the new moon. They're outside of Jerusalem when the moon goes dark, and they're looking for that tiny little sliver to emerge to start the next month. Appreciate you guys listening. If you're interested in this type of topic, please feel free to check out paulthepoke.com, www.paulthepoke.com. Keyword on the far right column is trend update. Appreciate you guys listening. Thanks a lot.